I think it's for us to look internally to say, who am I without any of this? If a fire came and burned everything to the ground, who would I be without all of this? And
Yes.
once we're able to root ourselves in that, it makes it so much easier for us to set boundaries, for us to say no, for us to be more effective with our time management and what we commit to.
Yes.
It's so much easier because it's like, hey, I'm not defined by whether or not I get this presentation to the VP at 5, right? Like if I get it to him tomorrow, because he said just get it to him this time this week, right? If I get it to him tomorrow, it's fine, right? I don't have to
Yeah,
stay and
exactly.
burn the midnight oil for that.
Welcome back to Rise and Tell with Sheekha. I am Sheekha Singh, your host and author. I have got something special to share. My brand new book, Unburnable Ambition: How Overachievers Win Without Burning Out. This book is for all of us who dream big but refuse to let burnout be the price. Head to shikhasingh.com/unburnable ambition and sign up today. Now let's dive into today's episode. Our guest for today is Julia C. Rock. She's a keynote speaker, a leadership consultant, an executive coach, and she's dedicated to transforming the workplace dynamics. Her book, Uncomplicated Leadership, is coming out in May of 2026. Julia's been a TED Talk speaker, a coach, a mentor to over thousands of professionals and leaders. And overall, I just love that her funda and her mantra is that leadership is not complicated. It's just hard. Just like fitness is not complicated, it's just hard. So there you go, everybody. Today we have with us the amazing Julia Rock. Julia, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm just excited to finally be on the podcast with you and be able to have a rich conversation. Thank you for thinking of me and having me on the show.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And I am super excited as well because for all our listeners and viewers out there, Julia is an expert in talking about leadership and how to uncomplicate leadership. Plus, she's going to talk about burnout today. So it's going to be very exciting. Cannot wait to dive in. Okay, Julia, my very first question to you is going to be, what led you to talking about and coaching people about leadership, and you try to give the message that it's not complicated but it's just hard? So tell us what led you in that direction.
Man, so I was a career coach for a long time. So that's actually how I started my business, helping people find career opportunities, preparing them for that. But what I noticed was happening was that people who I would help land jobs too soon, they were like a year or two, they'd be coming back like, oh, I'm ready for something else. And it's like, well, happy to help you, but why are you looking for something else? Is it truly just job growth or something? But they would say, hey, my management or my leadership or my company management, it would always be something around that. And I'm like, okay, so there seems to be something there. And then in my own corporate career, because my background is in finance, I don't have an HR background, but my background's in finance. And what I saw as I was rising the ranks of leadership within corporate, I saw the difference that happened when you had really good, strong leaders on the team, seeing how engaged they were, how productive the team was, to those where the leaders were not as effective. I'll just say it that way.
Right.
And you saw higher turnover. You saw people frustrated and everything. And so I said, okay, so maybe there's something here because maybe I've been tackling this career issue the wrong way, going by the individual. But perhaps if I can help leadership be more effective, then that would transform the workplace so people are excited about coming to work. And what I noticed about the leaders who were effective was that there were certain things that they did really well. And it wasn't really complicated stuff, right? It didn't have anything to do with their MBTI and their Gallup, whatever, these strengths and whoever. It was truly about simple, basic things that they did to bond with their teams, to build trust. And I'm like, maybe we've gotten this leadership thing all wrong. Maybe we've been investing our times in the wrong places when it's very simple concepts that help leaders to be effective.
Wow, amazing. That was interesting. I feel like you're a problem solver and I feel like you adapt very quickly because you were doing something very passionately and then you saw this through a different lens, and you're like, yes, I think we need to pivot and we need to find what's going on here through a different perspective. And
That's right.
that's awesome, Julia. So you mentioned how these leaders that you thought were really effective were using certain things to bond with their team, and they were just simple things. So what are some of these things that they did, and what are those things that you usually coach people on?
Yeah, so it's actually the what I call the 5 C's of uncomplicated leadership. So that's what I'm building my book on. The one that
Nice.
I was telling you about is going to come out in May. So it's 5 things that leaders do really well. It's one, it's clarity. The
Okay.
second is consistency. The third is connection. The fourth is courage, and the fifth is celebration. If you are able to communicate clearly and set expectations with your team, if you're able to show up consistently and they know what to expect of you,
Yeah.
if you're willing to be empathetic and build trust and connection with your team, if you're willing to stand up for them and advocate for them and be willing to show vulnerability even when it's painful. And
Yes.
then finally, if you're willing to recognize your team and celebrate them, if you're willing to do those 5 things, your team is going to be engaged. They're going to show up for you. They're going to be productive. And I wish I could say that, oh, this was something I came up with, but it's truly from watching every single leader that I know. And I'm like, what are the things that they all do well? And it
Yeah.
came back in some way to those 5 things.
That's interesting. And I want to touch on the connection part of it, Julia. I agree with all the 5 C's above. And I think I've noticed that in a lot of good leaders too. But tell me, in this day and age where more people prefer working remotely versus at the office physically, and I work at a 100% remote company, and I love working remote, but I do know that as a leader, sometimes it gets difficult, like the connection virtually. Yes, your video is on, and you can make out certain body language and expressions and emotions, but what, in your opinion, should leaders do today in this day and age when there's possibility that maybe your team members, like, what's the simple thing that they can do to strike that connection and maintain that connection throughout as a good leader in a remote setup?
I think people focus on, okay, how much am I seeing this person or am I talking to them in person? But I think about it like when you think about your family, you may
Right.
not always have family that's always around, but
Right.
you have a certain level of connection because of how well you have gotten to know them
Mm.
and what you have in common with them. And so if leaders, if they're working in a remote environment, find ways to still get to know your team members,
Right.
find out what's happening in their lives. And it's not just, okay, what are the tasks, right? Let's check
Right.
the boxes. What are your career interests? Check the boxes. Get to know them, get to know what lights them up, what they value, and share what you value as well, and find those connection points,
Yeah.
because then it makes it easier, regardless of whether you're sitting with them face to face all the time or you're remotely. It's like, hey, I feel like I've gotten to know this person.
Yeah.
I will tell you, some of the best connections I have made have been through social media. I've never
Nice.
met the people in person. I've never hugged them or high fived them ever.
Right.
But these are people that will show up for me. They will buy what I'm selling. They have bought my services.
Yes.
We've gotten on Zoom chats and we feel like we've known each other forever. And so I think if leaders stop focusing on, I don't see them all the time. It's like, well, how do I build that depth of connection? It's like, get to know them.
Right.
Understand where your shared values are. Help the person on the other end understand that you care about what they care about, that
Right.
you value what they value, and that you want to see them be successful, because that's how you get your team members to open up. And so when you're having these one-on-ones, they don't feel so stiff, like, okay, we're sitting behind a
Yes.
screen. It's like, man, I'm talking to a friend, or I'm talking to a leader, that I have a deeper relationship with. So that's how you can actually create more depth of connection no matter where in the world you are.
Love it. I absolutely love that. And I've experienced that so much. And I feel like I'm also at that stage where I'm coaching the other people who are stepping up to be next leaders. And
Mhm.
it's so difficult because someone who's going to be a new leader has never experienced anything like this before, and they have this certain notion in their head that, okay, this is what it means to be a manager, this is what it means
Hmm.
to be a leader. I'm like, no, you just have to be human first and
Yes.
just, understand. Because sometimes the like we have this one person on our team, and he's stepping up to be the leader next. And so when I was talking to him, he's like, Shika, just give me, tips and suggestion what to do. And I'm like, first of all, don't assume anything, because we have people from all walks of life on our team. And just because we don't have kids doesn't mean that don't assume that other people are okay working extra hours or
Right.
should be working on the weekends, should be available all the time. We don't know what it means to have kids. And so don't forget that. And he's like, wow, I never thought of it like that. Yes, exactly. Sometimes it's just simple, but then when you're doing this for so long, you understand the importance of things that you can talk about that are not work related. And that's how you build a connection, and then that relationship, and then that goes forward.
So one of the things that has been a game changer for a lot of leaders is actually taking a step back and putting themselves in the shoes of the people that they're managing. Too
Yes.
often leaders get promoted and they feel like they've arrived now, right? I've made it. I'm senior. I have the paycheck, the office, the title, whatever. And they
Yeah.
forget what it was like to be an analyst. They forget what
Correct.
it's like to be an associate. And if they would take a few extra minutes and take some time to reflect and think about, what was it like for me? What did I want from my leader? What
Right.
frustrated me about how my leader showed up? Because then those are things that you can incorporate into how you show. Because it's like, I remember what it was like. I remember when my boss asked me to work extra late for no reason because I was single. That sucked. I don't
Yeah.
want to do that to people, right? So a lot of times, when it comes to leadership, if you step back into the humanity of it, like you mentioned, and think about what was it like for me, and what did I want from my leaders? They know, like, you know what? I didn't like that at all. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that to the next generation of folks who are coming in. And that's one of the fastest ways to step into more effective leadership, when you reflect on where you yourself have come from.
Correct. I agree. 100% agree. Julia, let's talk about your book. I am very excited. I am looking forward to buying your book. To all our listeners and viewers, Julia's book releases in May 2026. Julia, tell us what the book is all about and what made you decide that, okay, yes, I'm finally going to write a book about leadership and uncomplicated leadership.
Yeah, so I'm excited because the book, while it breaks down the 5 C's, I'm able to tell stories around all of them. And so,
Yes.
because I started a Substack and I started a LinkedIn newsletter, and I felt like, I want to put this all in one place so that
Yeah.
someone can take it and read it and digest it at one time, versus trying to keep up with posts and so forth. And in the post, you're only able to go kind of surface level. And
Right,
so
right.
with the book, I'm able to tell real stories from my own career, from clients, and just because what happens is, and this is no shade to HR professionals, but what happens is, if you've never led people, if you've
Yeah.
never been through it, if all you have is theory, it's hard for the people who are listening to what you have to say. It's hard for them to relate to, because, like, well, you've never really sat in my shoes.
Correct.
But for me, as someone who's been a corporate leader and has coached executives, I'm able to talk about all the different things that you might experience as a leader, right? And, several things that you've experienced as a leader, whether you have to fire people, hire people, organizational restructuring, losing trust with your team, whatever it might be. Those are practical insights. And that's really what the book is about. This is
Right.
not about fluff. I'm not going to give you some other, assessment or methodology or something that's overly complicated. It's
Right.
really about practical, simple insights that you can take and immediately implement. What you find with a lot of the leadership concepts is that you got to go through the assessment and you get this PDF and you never look at the PDF again and you're still doing the same thing. And so
Correct.
it's like, what was it all for? But
Yes.
with this, because it's a very low barrier to entry here, and it's truly practical insights, the goal is that leaders will read it, they can share it with their peers or colleagues, And it's like, hey, this is actually something I can go and do. I can
Yes.
have this kind of conversation with the member on my team. I can ask these questions. I can
Yeah.
show up for my team in this different way. And they can do that as soon as they read the book. They don't need
Yes.
any, cycle or analysis time. So that's really what the book is about.
Love it. Love it. Congratulations,
Thank
Julia.
you.
And all the very best for the launch of your book.
Thank you so much. And if I could add one last thing,
Sure.
one of the key things I want to as because we talked about leadership is not complicated, it's just hard. What I want leaders to see is that leadership is just like any other area in your life. If you think about working out or wanting to lose weight, the idea is that you have to eat less and you have to increase your physical output,
Correct.
right? Like those are the two things. They're not really complicated things, but it's hard. You have to
Yes.
commit to it. And so it's the same thing
Oh,
with leadership, right? It's like, it's not really complicated, but it is hard and it requires you to commit. But with
yes.
this kind of a simple message, it's easier to commit because you don't feel overwhelmed with, I've got to learn or understand all these
Yes.
5,000 different concepts. It's like, hey, I can master these things and I can show up differently for my team.
Agreed. Yes. Very, very well said. I
Thank
like it. Thank you, Julia, for that. Okay. I've been wanting to ask you this. Actually, I wanted to ask this as the first question, but I was like, no, let's just ease into it and then I'll hit on it. You say that leadership is about confidence and not competence.
you.
So let's get into that. Why? Why do you think confidence plays such an important role?
Because because confidence requires you or allows you to show up as your full self even when you don't have all the answers, right?
Mm,
So a lot of folks think about competence in the sense of, okay, I have the skills, I have the knowledge, I have,
right.
but it's important for you to be able to lead even when you don't have all
Yeah.
the things. Your team is looking to you to be able to still show up even when you don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And so when you're confident, you can confidently say to your team, hey guys, this is outside of my wheelhouse, but here's how we're addressing this. Or here's who else I'm bringing in. Or hey, I
Right.
don't have that answer for you right now, but let's work together on this. But that takes a certain level of confidence and self assurance to be able to step into that. Because oftentimes leaders feel like, well, if I tell them I don't know, or if I don't know what I'm supposed to, my
Yeah.
team's going to think I'm not ready for this, I'm not up to this, my boss is going to think I'm not up to this. And so we psychoanalyze ourselves and we step into imposter syndrome
Yes.
versus saying, hey, I don't have all the answers and that's okay because I'm a human being. And
Correct.
what my team wants me to do is give them the answers I have and then show them that, hey, even if I don't have the answers, I'm still on your side. I'm still going to support you. I'm still going to help find a solution, regardless of whether or not I have all the skills and insights or not.
Correct, correct. And I think that ties back to what you told initially about being vulnerable and how that's an important trait of a good leader.
That's
And I
right.
believe that I stand by it 100% because I've seen so many leaders in the past that have this big wall between them. And for some reason, they just don't want to show that they're human or they've been there, done that, only because they feel like the team members are going to take advantage of this side of theirs if they show it to them. But in my experience, it's always been so wonderful whenever I'm real or when I'm sharing all my feelings of how exactly I think about a certain situation, because the response from the other side is just, I'm like, wow, okay, cool. I thought, it's going to turn out the other way, but it didn't. And I've read
Mhm.
that in a lot of books. I know Brené Brown also touches on that.
Yes.
And Sheryl Sandberg's book also, I think, mentioned about the exact same thing. And now you're saying this, Julia. So, what's been your experience with leaders not being vulnerable with their team members?
Yeah, so I've been on both sides of it. So I've seen when leaders have come in and they've tried, instead of them sharing what their own feelings are, they try to tell you what the party line is or the company line is.
Yes.
And you can see like the rumblings among the employees, or like when the leaders leave the room, we're all kind of whispering like, what was that?
Yeah.
We could have saved this time. He could have just sent us an email,
Yes.
right? Like it erodes trust because your team realizes that you're not being fully honest with them or transparent, that you're only parroting company talking points. So it makes it hard for them to connect with you on a deeper level.
Yeah.
But what I have seen, on the flip side of that, when I've stepped into vulnerability, I'll give you an example. When I was living in Argentina, I was leading an accounting division there, and we had a return to office kind of policy that was coming out.
Right.
And a lot of the folks on my team were frustrated about that, right? Because they're like, well, why do we have to go back? It's not clear. And I honestly didn't have a good answer
Right.
because, all the talking points the company was giving me, it's like, I kind of hear what they're saying, but I don't fully buy that myself.
Yes.
And so I told the team, I said, listen, I'm frustrated too. I
Yeah.
said, I don't have a good answer to give you. I'm like, I could tell you that it's collaboration and whatever the talking points are. But I said, but I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
And I said, but I do need your support on this because regardless of whether or not I fully understand and grasp, it is what's being asked of us. And I care about your success here. And one of my direct reports, because I had a team of managers that reported to me, she pulled me to the side after the meeting and she's like, thank you for being honest. I felt like we were the only crazy people. And
Right.
so with you sharing that you felt the same way, it was validating to our feelings to know that, hey, we're not in this by ourselves.
Correct.
And that just put such a smile on my face because I know having that bond with your team, it makes such a difference. And when they see that you see them, that you understand where they're coming from, and they see that you're being real with them, it creates such a difference.
Wow, that was a great example. And I feel like a lot of us can relate to it because that happens often. If
Mm-hmm.
you are in a leadership position like that and there are certain company wide, org wide changes that are going on, you are put on the spot as a leader and people are going to ask you questions. 99% of the times, you don't know the reason why we were asked to do something, but you are supposed to give an answer as a leader. And I think you handle that amazingly well,
Thank
Julia.
you.
I feel like everybody needs to take notes right now on how to lead when you also feel the exact same way and you don't have all the answers, but you're expected to give one to the team as a leader of the group. And I think that's great. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So now that we're talking about connection and getting real and vulnerable, Julia, let's talk about weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a team or you've been a leader for a team for quite some time, you realize what some of the weaknesses of your team members are.
That's right.
And you also know what your weakness is. And what in your experience has been the most difficult kind, or what's the most difficult situation you've been in where you had to tell this person, hey, I know this is your weakness, but you've got to work on this to become better because it's affecting the others? Okay, I can give an example and then
Yeah.
you can share what you would do if you were in that situation. So let's say this person doesn't know how to be, example, we are in a remote situation, and I'll take me, I report to you and I work incredibly well. Let's say I'm like technical amazing resource, but the minute I'm on camera with the client, I don't know how to talk, and I am either shuffling my hair like that, or I'm putting a ponytail, or touching my hair all the time, or walking up and grabbing a book, or doing some random shit on the call while the
Yeah.
client is on the call. But you are on the call too, and you cannot call me out in front of the client. So as a leader, I've put you in a tough position now. I'm awesome, but this is my weakness. So how would you deal the situation?
Yeah, so I've actually had that. It wasn't that the person was fidgeting, but the fact that the person couldn't even, when speaking to the client or the internal business partner, they struggled to just present the material. And
Yes.
so the question then became, let's figure out what the root cause is, right? So if you're shuffling and you're fixing your hair and walking around, the question is, what is it that you're uncomfortable with that is preventing you from being engaged? Is it just like, hey, I just don't like being on camera, or I just don't like whatever it is? And so understanding what the root cause is then allows me to figure out, okay, what kind of additional support do you need in that moment? And then how do we make sure that is there an opportunity for us to practice ahead of time, right? So, and can we have someone, even if it's not the senior client yet, but can we have someone else that maybe you're not super familiar with, but it's still a safe environment for the person to give you real feedback, right?
Right.
So that we start to train and work that muscle so that you get better over time. But here's the other thing that I've also learned. We have to understand that not all things are everyone's strengths, right? And there's some people where their weaknesses can be a detriment to the team. And it
Yeah.
may mean that you need to shuffle the job responsibilities because not every job is a fit. And
Right.
so if we have tried to support you and there's no improvement, or we see that this is truly out of your depth, it's my job as a leader to understand, okay, so what are Sheekha's true, skills and talents, and where can I put her to make sure
Right.
that those things shine through and she doesn't seem like she feels like she's being set up for failure, that she's at a disadvantage.
Right.
That's also the role of a leader. Sometimes we want to force people to stay in the job and it's like, this is not a fit, move them on, right?
Right.
Because otherwise they're going to end up on a performance improvement plan, or you're going to have to
Yeah.
manage them out of the organization, and that's not good for their morale, your morale, team morale, what have you. And so it may be, hey, this may not be a fit any longer. Let's see if there's someplace else where, her skills can shine a little bit more brightly. And then we can still work on some of these other skills in the back.
Love it. Love it. Wow, what a brilliant answer. That was like spot on. I like it.
Thank you.
Julia, what's been your most favorite part about writing this book, being a coach for so long, being in leadership position for so long, and handling a lot of clients and members? What's the most favorite part in this journey?
I would say that the biggest thing is when people get it. Like when you see the light bulb go off, whether it's that I'm giving a workshop or something, or if I'm coaching a client, and you can almost see in their head the thing that just like it comes together, or the light bulb goes off, and it's just, for me, that's just so rewarding, because I know that there are plenty of presentations and books and things out there, and so if I'm able to make that kind of a difference for someone, for me, it never gets old. And then, because then the client will come back and say, hey, I tried what you said, and this changed the conversation I had with the person, or I got a different response, or I feel better, I feel more confident going into this because I finally get it now.
Right.
Like that, for me, it never gets old, never gets old.
Nice. Great, great, great. That's awesome, Julia. So I'm actually intrigued now to know your strategy. Let's say you have a very difficult team to work with, and you've tried all the 5 C's. You've tried everything that you knew so far, but it's just so diverse and so different that you're unable to find a connecting point with anybody, because they might be brand new, or they have very minimal experience of being in a corporate workplace, or any workplace for that matter. And 3, there's just nothing that you can relate to with them, even if you go back and say, oh yes, I've been there, try to do it this way, and then people are just not open to feedback. Let's touch on feedback. Let's say that's the most difficult part right now. With everything that what would be the top 2 things that you would try out with this team?
So if it's been difficult for me to connect with them, and they're not taking the feedback, we now get to a point where we're having a frank conversation, and I'm having a conversation with each person before I bring everybody together.
Right.
And so the immediate first question is, why are you here? Right.
Mm.
So starting there, because the question is, are you committed to this mission or not? Right. Because if it's truly that you're not committed to the mission, it may mean that you're in the wrong place of employment. And, and again, for those who are listening, this is not just go fire everybody. That's not what I'm saying. Right. But it's like, if you have tried all the things and nothing is resonating, nothing is working, there's no cohesion, the question then becomes, do you have the right people at the right time in the right jobs? And so that's where you start to ask the why question, because then if you can find out what their why is, then you can ask them, okay, so, but like the why not? Why haven't this happened? Or why haven't you been able to, so forth? Once you get the why, you can ask the why have not, right? And then that allows you to figure out, okay, so what does this person actually need now? Because if the person's like, I don't want to be here, I don't like it, go to hell, then it's like, okay, well, maybe this is not the right place for you, right?
Right,
It's a
right.
pretty easy answer. But it may be that, hey, I don't know why my role matters. I feel like we're just making widgets. It doesn't feel like my work has any value. I'm tired of showing up every day.
Yeah.
Now that is your job as a leader, where it's like, okay, so now I know what this person's issue is. I can address that. But too often people focus on the personalities and, okay, does the person like me and do I like them and so forth. It's like that should be coming later, if at all, right? Like it's figuring out what's this person, what their issue is, and then solving that problem.
Right.
Most employees, they just want you to solve the problem.
Yeah.
That's it. Right? They just want to solve the problem. And then again, if it's truly that someone who wants to be a roadblock, they're not interested in being part of the team, then that's also a tough decision as a leader. And I will say, I have coached people who have held individuals on their team for longer than they probably should, because the person's been with the company for a long time. They've got a family, they've got a whatever. And it's like, but it's hurting everyone else on the team because this individual, their energy is dragging down the morale and the productivity of the team. And so you have to ask, why is this person's family life more important than everyone else on the team? And so it requires some tough decision making and soul searching, but that's part of leadership as well.
Agreed. Brilliant answer. I love it. Great. That was nice. I wish I could give you a high five right now, but
Come on, high five, virtual high five.
virtual high five. Nice. That was amazing. It's like, I think your experience with dealing all these things, your book, your idea about, you've really ended up convincing me that leadership is really not complicated and it's
It's not.
uncomplicated. So that's great. Great.
I'm happy to
Exactly
know
what
that
I
I'm
was.
converting people one person at a time.
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly what I was hoping out of this conversation. And then finally, my favorite part. My second book is all about burnout for overachievers and how, we can win without burning out, but also being the kind of overachievers that we are, where we want to do everything and all the time. So tell me, Julia, what do you think is the biggest reason for burnout these days in people?
Yeah. So, conventional wisdom is that, oh, my plate's full, my boss is putting things on my plate. We find ways to blame people externally.
Yeah.
But what I have learned with my own burnout journey is that we have often tied our value and our worth to how much we're able to get done. And so if we don't get all these things done, we feel like, okay, I'm not as smart, I'm not as competent, I'm not ready for whatever it is. And so we've wrapped up our self-esteem and self-worth in that. And so if we're able to decouple those things, decouple our identity from our title, how much money we make, what we accomplish, if we are able to decouple those things, we now give ourselves the grace and space to say, hey, if I don't do all 400 of these things, I'm not going to die. That's
Correct.
okay.
Correct.
It's okay. I can leave this for next week and nothing's going to happen. Right. And so I think it's for us to look internally to say, who am I without any of this? If a fire came and burned everything to the ground, who would I be without all of this? And once we're able to root ourselves in that, it makes it so much easier for us to set boundaries, for us to say no, for us to be more effective with our time management and what we commit to.
Yes.
It's so much easier because it's like, hey, I'm not defined by whether or not I get this presentation to the VP at 5, right? Like if I get it to him tomorrow, because he said just get it to him this time this week, right? If I get it to him tomorrow, it's fine, right? I don't have to stay and burn the midnight oil for that.
Correct. Wow. Exactly my thoughts. And I agree 500% this time. You've just pointed everything out in a very easy manner that everyone can understand what burnout is and what it does to you. And my favorite part that you just told is, who are you without all these things? I've mentioned this incident in the book too. I went to a yoga retreat in Nicaragua in 2013. And we were like a group of 7, 8 women from all over the world. And our yoga instructor, it was amazing weather at that time. Everyone's sitting. She asked everybody to sit in a circle. And this was the first time I've been to a yoga retreat, so I don't know what happens. And she goes, all of us are going to introduce ourselves so that you get to know who you're going to hang out with for the next few days. I'm like, okay, sure, this sounds fun. And so she started off and then she said, okay, why don't you start and then we'll go this way. And
Mhm.
so each one of us, whoever were attending that session, talked about where we worked at, what our title was, and what industry we were in. It's like, oh, I work at, Facebook, or I work at Instagram, I work at Lululemon, and I am this manager, that manager, and this and that. And then she nodded. She said, okay, fine, great. And she said, okay, do you remember everybody's name? She, cracked a joke, etc. And then she said, okay, we'll begin our session. And she asked everybody to lie down, close their eyes. And she said, forget about all your titles, your, who you are, how much you earn, what your degree is in, where you come from. Just close your eyes now and think about who you actually are without all of those, what kind of a person you are.
Mhm.
And that was just mind blowing to me, and such an eye opening experience that I've never forgotten that feeling. One, and second, exactly, like we tie ourselves to these external things so much to validate that we often forget, oh, you know what? I actually don't have to answer 500 emails in a day. It's
Yes.
okay not to do that. Yeah, it was a great experience for me. And you touched on that. So that I'm
Such
just
an awesome retreat though, man. I wanna go to that retreat.
send you the details. It was fun. It was so much fun, especially meeting women from all over the world. So brave. Like there was this one girl who she took a break from her job for like 6 months. She worked overtime for 6 months so that she could compensate. And she took the next 6 months off, and she was just going all over Latin America, trying out different things, solo traveling, all that. It was just fun.
Man, that's awesome.
Great. This was so much fun, Julia. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you,
Yes.
listening to your tips, suggestions, and everything that you had offered us about leadership, burnout, and your book. It's crazy how much I could relate to. So, thank you so much, and
Thank you.
all the very best for your book, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheekha. I really appreciate being here and being able to talk to your audience about leadership. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for being on a show.
Bye.
I hope you had as much fun as I did on this episode with Julia. You know what you've got to do. Thank you for tuning in for today's episode of Rise and Tell with Shikha. My book, Unburnable Ambition, is all about how to chase your biggest goals without losing yourself to burnout. You can now sign up at shikhasingh.com/unburnable ambition. Until next time, keep growing, keep glowing, and be yourself, and keep your ambition unburnable. Thank you.